President Haynes, we are now live.
Good morning. I'd like to call the Calbright meeting, Board of Trustees, Executive Committee meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, August the 17th. I'd like our board liaison to provide us with the protocols, and then to please call the roll.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Terry Lucas, the board liaison at Calbright College. You can follow the meeting agenda on Board Docs. The link can be found on our website, which is calbright.org/board. For attendees who wish to make public comment, please use the Q&A feature to address the board for up to 3 minutes. Public comment should be used to address today's agenda. A reminder that this board meeting is being recorded. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Hildegard Aguinaldo.
Present.
Amy Costa. Tom Epstein.
Here.
Jolena Grande.
Here.
Pam Haynes.
Here.
Jennifer Perry.
Here.
And Bill Rawlings.
Present.
President Haynes, we do have quorum.
Thank you very much. Can I get a hand raised for someone who would lead us in the pledge? Is there? Whose hand is raised? I can't see anybody but Bill right now.
Okay,
Is that Tom?
I raised my hand.
But please, then Tom, please lead us in the pledge.
Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Before we get too far along, I just want to discuss the order of the agenda. If there's anyone that has a potential change to that, this is the time to do it, or reordering it in any kind of way. I don't see, let's see, I don't see hands raised. I'm on a different computer, so I don't see everybody's picture. So, oh, here we go. Now, better, Pam, you're getting it. Sorry. So I don't see hands raised. So then that means that the agenda is as written. I'm going to make my president's report short. And we're going to be talking about a number of things, but one of those is around our budget, as well as around our annual report to the legislature. And I want us to take a breath. Maybe I'm the only one who sometimes stops breathing, but I want us to take a breath. I want us to take a moment, and I want us to really savor that we beat the odds one more time. Once again, the work that we are doing, we got through another legislative cycle in which we had to once again put down the elimination of Calbright, once again talk to our legislators, and we had help doing that. We had help because we have been building coalitions both inside the legislature, but also within communities that we are now serving, and that has made all of the difference in the world. And each of us has taken up the banner, whether we are a faculty member, or we're part of the academic senate, whether we're part of classified, whether we are the executive committee or the 17-member board of governors, board of trustees. We have said this is too important for us not to stand up and to give witness to the work that we have begun to do that is making significant inroads into populations and into regions that need this kind of a community college. One that recognizes flexibility, recognizes who our students are, and recognizes that we have got to create an institution that meets those needs, an institution that speaks to where our adult learners are and brings those voices into the work that we're doing. And so I just want to say, take a deep breath. The work continues, but we have made inroads. We now have more than 1,000 students. That number is going to increase exponentially, I do believe. And so I just want to stop and I want to say thank you very much to staff and everyone else who have been a part of this journey. The journey continues, but we are doing all of the things we need to do to keep that momentum going. And with that, that's the end of my report. And the CEO report, I think we have Carmen, Chief of Staff, who will give the CEO report today.
Thank you, President Haynes, for those remarks. And I echo the need to pause and reflect, particularly on the tremendous accomplishments that we've been making. So, and we'll certainly have some time to do that later this agenda as we reflect on our milestone report and the accomplishments that we've made this fiscal year. And so thank you for that. And thank you to the members of the Calbright Board of Trustees Executive Committee. I'd like to begin by sharing my congratulations to the CCC Board of Governors, who also serve as Calbright's Board of Trustees, for receiving the Association of Community College Trustees Equity Award for the Pacific region. So hats off and congratulations to this Board of Trustees and the Board of Governors. So your leadership of Calbright is illustrative of your leadership of the entire community college system. And as you put it, President Haynes, putting equity at the core of everything we do is essential. So thank you. And while this recognition is well-deserved, I know that you all share Calbright's focus on advancing this significant work as we continue to strive and create a more welcoming, equitable, accessible, and inclusive system. Today, I'm thrilled to share with you that we have launched the pilot of our newest program, Introduction to Data Analysis. Our goal was to enroll a small cohort of roughly 50 students by the end of August, but interest has been overwhelming, and we will likely reach that capacity on the pilot by the end of this week, with students beginning the curriculum shortly thereafter. We anticipate running this program, this pilot, I should say, through fall so that we can identify successful components and opportunities for improvement and iteration before opening to the public in late 2022. As we plan for the future today, I'm pleased to present to you Calbright's 2022-2023 fiscal year budget, which we'll discuss in further detail later this afternoon. Building on the significant momentum generated during the past fiscal year, this budget focuses on supporting the student experience, continued expansion of operational capacity, and building our institutional infrastructure. And while our forward-looking budget provides a framework for our vision for the future, our accomplishments this past year serve as a launching pad. So as I mentioned later this board meeting, our Vice President of External Affairs, Marketing and Communication will join us to highlight our most recent milestone report and other areas of growth for the college over the past fiscal year. This is an exciting moment at Calbright, and I personally look forward to moving ahead in our startup period in concert with all of you and everyone here at the college. So thank you, President Haynes. This concludes my remarks.
Thank you for that. So we're now going to go into closed session for our Board of Trustees. You have a link specifically into that. So I'll see you on the other side.
Okay, President Haynes.
Thank you very much. We have completed our closed session items. It was a conference with our labor negotiator, discussion around public employee performance evaluation of our president and CEO, as well as a public employment issue relative to our chief financial officer. There was no action taken on those items. So with that, and I guess I'm supposed to ask, is there any public comment on the closed session items?
Oh, President Haynes, that was asked prior to
I didn't, but
the closed session.
I
But
didn't.
there are no public comments.
Perfect, thank you. Didn't catch that before. So we're now moving to our consent item. We are now moving to section 3 of the agenda. And on the consent agenda, there is a lump sum contribution match as specified in the current Chief of Program Operations Employment Agreement. The district will make a contribution into either a 403B or a 457B for the Chief of Program Operations in the amount of $10,000 for having met criteria and performance goals for the 2021-22 school year. There are no changes to the employment agreement. Do any trustees wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion or separate vote? And is there any public comment?
I would actually like to just comment one thing on the consent agenda in
Yes.
the and this is about as small as it gets, but in the minutes, it said that I didn't vote, and I was at the meeting and I thought I would have voted on it, but so I'd like to be added unless somebody has a different recollection.
I don't have a different recollection, so we can take that as an amendment. Okay, I'm hearing no comments.
President Haynes, there are no public comments either.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then can I get a motion and a second and a roll call vote on this item?
So
Second, I'll move.
Okay, so I heard Arnaldo move, and then I heard Rawlings second.
Yeah, that'll work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That works. Can I get a roll call?
Hildegard Aguinaldo,
Aye.
Amy Costa,
Aye.
Tom Epstein,
aye.
Jolena Grande,
Aye.
Pam Haynes,
Aye.
Jennifer Perry, Bill Rawlings.
Aye.
Motion carries, President Haynes.
Thank you. I'm terribly confused here. So on item 3.4, we've actually voted on that. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. All right. Then we can move to the action items, which is 4.1, which is an addendum to the employment agreement interim chief financial officer. And we have Vice President of Human Resources, Joseph Bremgartner.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Haynes, Vice President Costa, members of the board. Excuse me. This item is to approve the addendum of the employment agreement for the interim chief financial officer. Since the recruitment is still active for this position and a permanent employee has not yet been retained, the college is the current interim chief financial officer is willing to continue on a temporary part-time basis until the position is filled. So our request is that you approve the addendum to the employment agreement for the chief financial officer.
Do we have any comments or questions from our trustees? Jolene, I see your hand.
Thank you. I was just wondering what the expiration of the previous contract was, or what the length of time so far under this interim contract has been.
I will have to get that date for you. It is in August, August 1st, I believe, but I'm not positive that that's actually accurate. It's within the first few days of August. So that's why I'm going to double check for you.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. It's the first time I've seen someone who's held a position transition from holding the position to an interim position of the same. So I was just wondering what the length of time was on this.
Well, he's not transitioning to an interim position. He is currently an interim. We're
Okay.
just extending the interim contract that he already holds.
Thank you.
You bet.
And I'm happy to add some additional context there if it would be helpful, Jolena. There would be no lapse with this addendum. So I believe it ends on August 8th, and then it would kind of roll over. So if this were approved by the Board of Trustees, there would be no lapse.
All right, thank you. Is there, are there any other questions? I don't see hands raised. If there's not, I'm going to go to public comment.
President Haynes, there is no public comment, but you do have a readout for this item.
Oh, I do indeed. You're so good at your job, Terry. Thank you. So 4.1, the Calbright College and Accor Varadarajan agreed to an employment agreement on February the 9th, 2022. This addendum before the executive committee agrees to extend the terms of the already approved agreement for another 6 months from August the 9th, 2022 through February the 8th, 2023, or until a chief financial officer is hired, whichever occurs first. There is no increase in compensation or any other benefits, financial or otherwise. The compensation for this position remains at $268,000 per annum. So now that I've read that, is there any other questions from my colleagues on the board? I don't see any. And would there be any public comment?
There is no public comment, President Haynes.
Thank you. Then can I get a motion and a second to approve?
I'll move approval. This is Member Grande.
And can I get a second, please?
Second,
That's Tom Epstein is seconding. Would you please call the roll?
Hildegard Aguinaldo.
Aye.
Amy Costa,
Aye.
Tom Epstein,
aye.
Jolena Grande,
Aye.
Pam Haynes,
Aye.
Jennifer Perry, and Bill Rawlings.
Yes.
Motion carries, President Haynes.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is 4.2, which is the Career Catalyst Program Agreement, and Ted Lai is going to present on this item.
Thank you very much, President Haynes, Vice President Costa, members of the board. So I'm here to talk about Career Catalyst and the agreement. So next slide, please. In our time together, I want to go ahead and review the challenges that our students face, as well as some of the opportunities that we saw, talk about the solutions that we came upon after some ideation, and then how Career Catalyst plays a part in that, and then open it up for questions and comments. So let's go ahead and begin with challenges and opportunities. And in terms of that, some of this will be information that you've seen before. Next slide. But I want to start with just information we've gotten from students, feedback from surveys, meetings with them, either individually or in small groups, sometimes focus groups. So some of the big areas that we saw as a need, according to our students, was content area support. So both scheduled as well as drop-in. So scheduled meaning office hours or study groups, etc. And then, of course, there was a need for authentic use or review of content learned. So students were looking for ways to utilize what they learned or review it in a kind of spiraling manner so that they would feel more prepared for the certification tests. They also were looking for leadership development and community engagement. So ways that they could engage with each other within the larger community and then find ways to have some leadership opportunities to build those transferable skills. Employment and internship opportunities. So of course, our students are looking for ways to find quick employment or some way into a pathway where there's more growth. Engagement with peers on academic work. So, they were looking earlier when we mentioned community engagement, that's more social possibly, but engagement with peers on academic work to be able to study together per se. And then participation in the participatory governance process at Calbright was another area that some mentioned that they were interested in. So we have a couple quotes. The first one on peer support, they said, I wasn't meeting my own goal of getting my A+ certification done in a reasonable amount of time. I found that it was helpful to have a study buddy, someone who is also doing their program at Calbright, to let him know I am making progress. And then from another student, the only challenge that I can say that I feel is that I feel very isolated during my study. And so sometimes when I had any difficulty to complete my challenge, I share it on Slack. So again, that desire for reaching out. Then we mentioned this in a couple board meetings ago, but student governance challenges. The main one that I want to focus on right now is just encouraging busy students. And that included a low number of students who'd expressed interest in student government so far, and challenges balancing time and priorities. And then, of course, a big one, helping understand the why. They may be curious about student government, but understanding that why and being able to focus on their why as well was important. So after thinking about it and talking to some students, talking with our team, we came up with some different solutions. And the final one that we ended up on includes the following two things. The Experiential Learning and Leadership Program. And so what is this? This is basically a 4-month paid internship program that's designed to create work experience and leadership opportunities for current students and alumni. And participants will be able to apply the skills and knowledge they've learned in their Calbright academic program to support other students, programs, and staff. So this is something where we were able to think of a way to be a short-term employer of sorts, provide them with employment opportunities short-term, but also in a way that helps provide some other things that they talked about, wanting to study together, wanting to review material. So this solves for quite a few of the things that they're looking for. And in terms of what we could do with student government, one of the big solutions was the idea of really tying it into workforce development skills. Student government, by itself, there are some students who are interested. But the more that we could tie it into workforce development skills and what they could bring forward to their employment opportunities and what their personal brand was, seemed to resonate. So what we decided to do for this was, really try to articulate the life, career, and leadership skills gained through participation in this program and in student government. And the content we do that through is the National Society of Leadership and Success, NSLS. We also wanted to make, again, that stronger connection of skills desired in the workforce to skills gained in student government. So if the workforce is looking for people who are good communicators, who have leadership experience, these are all things that you can get as a mentor, as a member of student government. We wanted to connect leadership opportunities as part of the solution to feedback. So again, looking at the feedback that's been given by students, we don't want that to ever feel like it's falling on deaf ears. So this is a solution that came of that. And of course, supporting the integration of gained skills and experiences into the student resume and brand. We really want to be there to help mentor and coach them through career services to provide that integration so that they're not just going through this, but understand how it impacts their brand, how they talk about it. And then, of course, providing stipends for completion of the NSLS content. So this is both for the Excel program as well as student government. We went ahead and we also did some focus groups with students who were interested in hearing more about it. And here were some of the things that they said, direct skills and experience that I can take into the workplace. It's always good to teach people what you know, because the more you teach it, the more you learn it yourself, right? And it's one way of really mastering the material, leadership development, and personal development. Gaining work experience. I think that's really key. I think it's really key to be able to go into getting a job or getting a position and having some experience to go along with that, instead of just coming in at rock bottom. And I also think it's important to work with other people and share what you know, but it also helps to develop your own interpersonal skills, which is really important. And then finally, that National Leadership Council, and they're talking about NSLS there, I think that's awesome. I would have never thought that that would be a component of this program too. So overall, I really think this is an awesome program and an awesome opportunity, especially because with that particular association, you're a member for life. So understanding that this is something that will grow with them as they continue onward. But as you can see, there was a lot of response. We had 43 students who wanted to be involved as mentors, and we're narrowing that down, and we have approximately 10 that will move forward with us as the first phase of mentors. So where does Career Catalyst come in? Well, as we were looking around, we were trying to research places that provide short-term temporary employment that's focused on students. And unfortunately, what we found is there's a lack of available partners and organizations that specialize in students, that specialize in part-time services. And so, when we looked at some other possibilities, Career Catalyst came up as part of the Foundation for California Community Colleges. So I went to Akur Varadarajan, as well as Michael Gladish, so our interim CFO, as well as our person who heads up contracts. And I talked to them about that. Like, what do we go about doing here? Because the contract will be about $250,000. So I wanted to understand the path forward for getting quotes, for perhaps going out to RFP. And what they advised was that, this is really something that they both felt was a special circumstance. That yes, we have put in place best practices, but at the same time, this is an agreement that would be exempt from competitive bidding or multiple quotes because it fell under those specialized services that Career Catalyst could provide, and we were not finding others do it. So what will Career Catalyst do for us? They bring a wealth of knowledge, first of all. I mean, they're part of the Foundation for California Community Colleges, as you know, which means that they're involved with not just us, but other California community colleges, as well as other employers of record. And they provide student employment. They've been providing student employment services since 1998. So they are very specialized in this. They'll be supporting us and our students by providing onboarding of those students, facilitating the payment of stipends, as well as the hourly rates for the students in the Excel program as they mentor their peers. So it's a very focused agreement on what they'll be doing, and what it allows us to do is focus on our students, on the program, and on how we can build those opportunities to work together and grow. So with that, I'm going to pause and answer any questions or field any comments.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Ted. Are there questions from our trustees? Bill, I see your hand raised.
Thank you for that. I just have to jump in on this. There's a few different roles that I play within the system, one being an employer of student work experience programs, but also as a subcommittee or a special assignment for the Board of Governors. I chair the California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee. I would say Career Catalyst has a very good reputation. The foundation plays a really critical role throughout an entire system in this type of work. I think the ideas that have been presented here are absolutely fabulous, and I don't think you could find a better partner on this. So really wholeheartedly support this item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Grande, and then Member Aguinaldo.
Thank you, President Haynes, and thank you, Ted, for the presentation and introduction to Career Catalyst, because this is something that I was completely unaware of. I'm just interested, though, in knowing the number of students that can be served under a single contract. Is there a differential for the number of students that a community college outside of Calbright would pay that would be different? Are we only allowed to funnel 1,000 students under this contract? Or is it wide open to any number of students that are enrolled at the campus?
That's a great question. Thank you for it. It's really wide open. We could really bring in as many students as possible. We are doing a smaller phase one approach to really get that, to really figure out with our students and with our teams what is the best way to utilize those peer mentors? And from that information, we expect to scale. We also expect to develop other possible opportunities within Calbright and possibly within some of our workforce development partners for how this could grow. But we want to do it as intentionally as possible. And so, you know, we're very encouraged that we had so many students who were interested, and we're working with our faculty instructors on deciding which ones are in the best place, really, to be mentors that can have an impact.
Thank you. Hildy?
I feel like Member Grande is my spirit animal. She took the question right out of my mouth. So I'm just going to stick to my comment, which is I could not be a bigger fan of this program. I think putting a more formalized structure around a set of skills that students would benefit from throughout the entirety of their college career and beyond is something that we should wholeheartedly support. So thank you for bringing awareness and attention to this program.
Thank you very much. And I do want to also thank the entire board. When we gave an update on student government a few meetings back, one of the comments was, we should really find a way to help our students who are volunteering for student government. How can we provide a stipend for work? And so that really, I mean, we'd thought about it, but that also helped us really think outside the box in terms of what we could provide. So although this is helping with the Excel program, this is also an equal part helping with our student government as we move forward.
I don't see other hands raised. I just want to add my support of this program. And in so many cases, we need to find ways in which we compensate, and I use compensate with quotes around it, but monetarily is critically important to so many of our students. And not just at Calbright, but across our system, there are those who are out volunteering, and at some point, we lose sight of what they're giving up in terms of work and other kinds of things in order to do that. So this is a really good alignment of the studying and the credentialing of our students with some real live and realistic expectations in terms of mentorship in the fields that they wish to go into. And so kudos to you, Ted, and to everyone else who have put this together, and gives us an opportunity to hopefully support in this process. Is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment, President Haynes.
Then with that, can I get a motion and a second to approve?
I'll move to approve. Rawlings.
Rawlings moves. Can I get a second, please?
A second, I'll second.
And we have a second from Aguinaldo. Would you please call the roll?
Hildegard Aguinaldo,
Aye.
Amy Costa,
Aye.
Tom Epstein,
Aye.
Jolena Grande,
Aye.
Pam Haynes,
Aye.
Jennifer Perry, Bill Rawlings.
Aye.
Motion carries, President Haynes.
Thank you. Our next action item is 4.3, which is a public hearing and adoption of the 2022-23 final budget. And we have our Chief of Staff, Carmen Drummond, who will be presenting on this item on behalf of our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, President Haynes, Vice President Costa, and members of the Board of Trustees. Today is the public hearing for comments and the adoption of the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. And as President Haynes mentioned, I am presenting this item on behalf of Calbright's Interim Chief Financial Officer. I'm also joined today, though, by Calbright's Accounting and Payroll Manager, Denny Dent, who's been instrumental in supporting the budget preparation process with our Interim Chief Financial Officer. So Jenny is on with us today to answer any questions at the conclusion of this presentation. Next slide. All right, so this presentation includes an overview and timeline, the projected closing numbers for 21-22, the 22-23 budget for adoption, and next steps. Next step, next slide. One more slide, please. Great, thank you. All right, so Calbright's 2022-2023 fiscal year budget reflects our mission and continued focus on students. It also advances our ambitious goals outlined in our board-approved strategic vision. We're now roughly about halfway through Calbright's startup period and begin the fiscal year with exceptional momentum and continued iteration improvement, not only on our policies and priorities, but also to our core operations to ensure we are in a position to support the growth that we expect in the years ahead. We've made exceptional progress under President Menon's leadership. And while this year's budget brings us through the end of 2023 in June, it also provides insight into our future. It includes exceptional expansions in our operational capacity and growth in the size of our faculty and teams that work directly with students and invest in not only our institutional infrastructure, but also the research and development necessary to develop new high quality programs, also to further align with labor market and employer needs, and to explore technology and learning platforms as part of our dedication to continued iteration and evolution. Next slide. All right, let's skip over this one. One more slide, perfect. So, given the care and attention our budget, I should say, deserves and requires, it's critical that it's the result of a collaborative process that provides the time to plan, iterate, and revise over the course of the spring and summer. So I want to just take one moment and address the line D in this slide and note that this year's budget accounts for a reserve of 8.4%, and we expect to maintain a reserve well above 5% in the years ahead as well. Next slide. So this is just a visual representation of our budget preparation calendar. Okay, one more slide, next slide. Thank you, perfect. As you'll hear about during the informational portion of this meeting later today, the 2021-2022 fiscal year catalyzed notable traction for Calbright. As we work on closing out the last fiscal year and see actual expenses, we anticipate ongoing funds will have an estimated total expense of $13.5 million and an ending balance of $8 million. One-time funds, can we go back? Thank you, perfect. One-time funds will have an estimated total expense of $6.4 million and an ending balance of $71.1 million. For a fiscal year spend total approximately $20 million. So one thing I do want to point out is that this is lower than what we had budgeted for last year and reflects our judicious approach to spending public dollars. And some expenses we anticipate moving to the coming fiscal year and into the future. I do want to also just take a moment though and pause on this topic to briefly provide some context here. So as I'm sure some of you all know, that the COVID pandemic has created somewhat of a fluid environment from a planning perspective. For example, we had budgeted for procuring physical space this past fiscal year and chose to postpone that. So this is an expense of, or was an expense of around $11 million that we anticipate incurring, but it's going to be delayed a bit. We also had leadership changes with some of our partners, like at UC Irvine School of Education, which has a new dean now. We've begun the earnest work with UCI now as part of our multi-year partnership, but it was delayed a bit during that transition. And the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians, which approves things like the academic LBN programs had an exceptional backlog, which has temporarily delayed the launch of our LBN program. Again, this is another deferred expense that we expect to be around $3 million. This will come to fruition though in the future instead of during the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Hiring this past fiscal year was also a challenge given the competitive labor market, especially for our technology roles. One thing I will say though is this isn't a Calbright specific headwind, but something that is being felt across the public sector, which can't move, of course, as quickly as the private sector. So next slide. Calbright met with departments and leadership during the budgeting process, which most importantly was to ensure tighter projected expenses. The budget was planned using our resources to actively support our student growth and success while aligning ourselves with our strategic vision and goals. Next slide. Thank you. The California state budget provides Calbright with $15 million in ongoing funding this year, and our budget process assumes stable funding in this amount for the remainder of our 7-year startup period. Our budget also assumes a starting balance of roughly $71 million in available startup funds, which were initially provided to the college at its founding. Calbright's budget includes a continued focus on the expansion of operational capacity, which I shared earlier. This includes approximately 50 board-approved positions. That's about roughly, I would say, $6 million in an increase there that we intend to post publicly and commence searches for during the course of the fiscal year. The majority of these roles are new roles that are critical to the startup operations and long-term plans to scale. Appropriate budget for statutory benefits like CalPERS and STIRS for associated new positions is also accounted for. Expenditures for contracts and purchases or partnerships, I should say, opportunities that we expect for this fiscal year, but yet weren't inked into carrying the appropriate placeholders in our budget. Next slide. This slide is a standard accounting spreadsheet for the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget. A preliminary version of this budget was presented to the board meeting, presented at the board meeting to the trustees in July. As departments and leadership finalized anticipated expenses between then and now, there is a total budget increase of approximately $2 million in this budget than in the version that was shared back with you all in July. One thing I do want to do is just maybe take a few minutes to talk about some of the major changes, specifically in the area of other operating expenses. So the inflationary environment is quite different today than it was last summer. And so we are planning for higher costs of goods and services as we anticipate an environment of inflation for a prolonged period of time. So in addition here, our learning and instruction, L&I, received an additional $1 million to aid in ongoing research, development, and scale activities to design, build, and launch new high-quality program pathways that are responsive to the needs of adult learners in key regions of the state. Our student services and success team budget was increased by approximately $1.3 million. As 2022-2023 expenses, expected expenses for the 5-year UCI contract that the board approved were finalized. The budget does not, however, include the fiscal year 22-23 step and column increases based on the new board approval of district-wide salary schedules. At the time of developing this, sufficient information was not available, but this will be included as part of the Q1 Q1 report to the board. Next slide. So this slide and the next few are visual representations of the budget assumptions included in the budget tables. I won't spend much time on these graphs as they are also in your materials. But as you can see here in this first one, the majority of Calbright's personnel are funded by annual dollars provided in the state budget. In addition to these roles, there are positions that are critical to our startup process that are funded by one-time dollars and focused on building the foundation and needed scale. Let's go ahead and skip actually to slide 19. Skip through these, thank you. Okay, so while the item today before the board is in regards to this year's budget, I do want to share a bit about our planning in the years ahead. Of course, budgets build on one another from year to year and don't exist in a discrete 12-month vacuum. So as Calbright, our team grows and our enrollment and program scale, we anticipate a continued expansion in full-time employees, both faculty and staff. Our long-term projections include salary step increases of roughly 5%, and we also plan for a continued decrease in contract support. Next slide. All right, so comparing last year's budget to this year's, the main areas for increased investments are, unsurprisingly, in employee salaries and benefits, which will support, though, our 40 to 50% expansion of the team this year and an increase in operating expenses. This, for the most part, is to support our continued enrollment growth and focus on iterating and improving how we engage with our students. We'll need, for example, more licenses for learning software, new data and finance systems, all of which are expected and critical to building Calbright from the ground up. So when you look at these two tables, you'll notice that we project operating expenses to be notably higher this fiscal year than last year. While this is true, our budget projections for this year of roughly 19 million are a reduction from our approved budget last year. There are a couple broad categories that are driving our operating expenses, and they most notably revolve around growth. We expect to more than double our enrollment this fiscal year and grow the size of the Calbright team. This, of course, brings expenses like technology for faculty and staff, paired with the fact that some of our early technology purchases are now quite old and need to be replaced. This year's budget also includes roughly $2 million to substantially grow the size of our student learning technology lending library, which provides laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots for students who need them. And as we grow, we also have additional licensing needs. For example, every student in our Salesforce administrator program needs a Salesforce license to move forward in their curriculum. And lastly, we have new and further defined partnerships planned for this fiscal year. For example, we expect to spend 1.3 million this year in our joint research endeavor with the UC Irvine School of Education. And so broadly speaking, we have new partnerships that are increasing our operating expenses compared to the last fiscal year. Enrollment growth and expansion of the Calbright team, all of which are central factors to the increase in our operating expenses. Next slide. Perfect, let me just make sure. Okay, perfect. And looking ahead, we'll continue to keep a reserve on hand, as I mentioned earlier, that exceeds 5%. And we anticipate a 9.93 contingency reserve in the fiscal year 23, 24, and then a 7.5 in the 24-25 fiscal year budget. Thank you. All right, so our finance team is continuing to work on year-end close, and all the final expenses are continuing to be reconciled. As part of our standard practice, we'll begin our internal 2021-2022 financial audit in the fall. And we'll continue to provide quarterly updates about our real-time expenditures so the board is apprised of our progress in spending throughout the course of the year. I am asking the board to approve Calbright's 2022-2023 fiscal year budget as presented, and I am happy to open it up for questions. Thank you for your time.
So thank you so much for that presentation. Any trustee discussions or questions? I don't have everyone's, is there any hands raised that I don't see?
Pam, there are no hands raised that I can see by the board members.
Thank you. Well, then I just want to add, this was a very thorough explanation of the budget. I truly appreciate that. I do have a question with regard to the reserve. And I may have my percentages a bit wrong, but you'll still get the gist of my question. So the current reserve, I think it was 8.4%. And it was going to go up in this next fiscal year to 9.93. Is that correct?
Yes, sorry, I'm pulling up.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay, and then then the expectation in terms of projection is that it's going to go down to 7 point something or other. What is the factor that is making it go up then down? What's going into it or not going into it from year to year that changes in the down position, I guess. I know that the requirement is 5%. I am very conservative when it comes to reserves, having gone through the big recession, and so I guess I'm wondering what's factoring into it going up, and then the projection is that it's going to go down.
So the reserve is based on the total expenses versus the ongoing expenses for the current year. So that's where the factor comes from. So as we move across the years in our budget, our projected expenses are decreasing, and our ongoing balance is also decreasing. So therefore, the slight increase and then the decrease actually.
Okay, so it is factored into the ongoing, the one time is not factored at all regardless. And so I understand that rationale. I guess in the very long term, the 71 million is going to continually go down. We will be ultimately operating under for the foreseeable future under the ongoing. And it seems to me that it would be nice at least to project an expectation that of a reserve that the board will feel comfortable with, that goes beyond the 5% that we are required to hold. Just my own experience in the recession was, and there may be other pots, but Calbright is sort of limited relative to its pots of money, unlike other traditional colleges. So there's certain discretionary dollars that we can sort of, in the sense of a real terrible downturn, we could probably go to. And I'm not certain that Calbright has that ability to do that. And so I'm sort of not really expecting an answer, but it would be helpful to have some plan in place for this particular college that is designed and focused in on our reality, that we're not using a full-time factor relative to students. That 15 million is an allocation and an appropriation that will only change if we can get the legislature to do so, and it's not embedded in any kind of formula. So I just want to put that on somebody's radar.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so yes, Tom.
Yeah, you just raised an issue that I wanted to ask about. Over time, we expect to get apportionment for our students, correct? So that will change the revenue stream dramatically.
That is correct. The Chancellor's Office is working on a funding formula that revolves around CBE education. It is not quite in place yet. They're working with some partnerships, and then they will open it up to colleges such as ourselves for our input and help in determining factors on growth and statuses to determine that formula and how it could best serve all the colleges across the state that are doing CBE education.
Thanks. And when does our ongoing funding run out? I can't remember what year that is. It was originally 7 years.
Ongoing funding is ongoing funding. You have to go in and change it in the Budget Act.
Yeah.
So that 15 million, originally it was adopted for 7 years, but you're saying that it's just now an annual budget item, basically.
I'm not sure of the 7 years that you're referencing. Generally, the horizon is 3 fiscal years. And, you know, as long as it's in ongoing funding, it goes on until, you know, there's a statutory change in the Budget Act to stop it.
Yeah, no, originally it did have 7 years at 20 million, but okay, that's not, as you say, inoperative at this moment. And then the other source of funding, I think, that's not included in here is potential philanthropic funding.
That's true.
That we have some innovative concepts here that might be able to find out other funding as well. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you. Bill.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Tom, I remember as we were starting this up, it was around the 2026 timeframe, if I recall, but hopefully that's changed and we don't have to worry too much about that. And my question is a little related. So as we fulfill our plans to increase our enrollment, and right now we're over 1,000. If I recall, one of the goals recently was that, you know, sometime in 2023 or 2024, we'd get up to 4,000, 5,000 enrollment, which would theoretically be pretty close to what our apportionment would need to fund the 50 million ongoing funding we've got. My question is kind of structural, is as we increase and we scale up that enrollment, we're going to be scaling up also our costs. And then as we go to the, you know, ideally 6,000, 7,000 in enrollment, maybe higher than that. As we project future years, I would be interested in seeing kind of a little more detail on different programs that may grow and how the cost structures of those different programs would increase expenses differently.
Thank you. We'll make note of that, Bill.
That's a good suggestion, Bill. Thank you for that. Are there other questions? I don't see hands raised. So is there a public comment on this item?
There is no public comment, President Haynes.
All right, then can I get a, no, this is not a, no. Yeah, this is a motion,
Yes.
sorry, to approve. I apologize. So can I get a motion to approve in a second, please?
I'll move to approve. Rawlings.
All right, Rawlings moves. And who seconded?
Perry.
Perry seconds. Can we get a roll call?
Hildegard Aguinaldo,
Aye.
Amy Costa,
Aye.
Tom Epstein,
Aye.
Jelena Grande.
Aye.
Jelena,
I'm trying to get my mic to unmute. Aye.
thank you. Pam Haynes,
Aye.
Jennifer Perry,
Aye.
and Bill Rawlings.
Aye.
Motion carries, President Haynes.
Thank you. We're now moving into our information and reports. Item 5.1 is the milestone and fiscal update and mission statement review. And we have Brendan O'Callaghan to present on this item. Brendan?
Hi, good afternoon, President Haynes, Vice President Costa, members of the board. Let me share my screen here. Okay. All right. So as the title suggests, I'm here to talk a little bit. We just voted on our forward-looking budget. But that's really, as Carmen said, last year was a launching pad for what that is. And so I want to talk a little bit about the momentum and traction that we're carrying from last year's successes. We had a really productive year last year. And so I want to talk about that, and then also want to go over the Milestone Report that we submitted to the state legislature at the end of July here, that just talks about all of the legislative mandates that our founding legislation outlines that we need to hit every year. So with that, I will say, looking at last year, if there's a theme, it's momentum and traction. We had, as I said, a really good year. Our enrollment grew by 123%. And that not only did it grow, but our processes and operations regarding the student experience also, we had the time to improve, iterate, and consider what's working, what's not working. And so some of the things that we developed were proactive outreach initiative, which we launched in the fall, that provides an opportunity for our student-facing staff to engage with students who are in the enrollment funnel. Maybe they submitted an application but haven't moved forward since then, and talk to them a little bit about what questions they have, what competency-based education is Calbright really free, those kinds of questions, and it's all part of creating a human-driven, welcoming and nurturing environment for our students. So we also launched, kind of along those lines, live information sessions, where they're just open every other Wednesday. Students, interested students, new Calbright staff, can come attend these, and we just talk about Calbright and what our mission is, and what enrolling at Calbright looks like. And so these have been really effective tools, not only to help kind of catalyze enrollment, but also nurture student success. And then, when we think about, to Member Rawlings' point from the last item here, talk about scaling kind of operational capacity here. There's not only hiring and expanding the team, but also looking at what efficiencies can we create. So one of the things that we used to do was we used to have onboarding sessions for program-specific onboarding. And we were able to look at that and move them all into one kind of more uniform onboarding session, so that students that wanted to enroll in CRM, and if they just missed that onboarding session, they would have to wait for the next one. But now they can start more quickly, and we're able to offer more slots for our students. And then as anyone, if you've been to our website recently, it is new and beautiful. And I want to give a shout out to my team who really led that, but also, we spoke with current students, we spoke with alumni, we spoke with faculty, we spoke with every part of the college about building that website. And it is really a far superior tool than we used to have. Just a piece about that is that I was looking at our data yesterday about our organic website traffic, and 10% of our of people who land on our enrollment page on our website move forward, they complete the form. Which is a really high conversion rate from our organic perspective. So it's clearly working well, and we'll see that in our enrollment growth too. And then with regards to the California State Auditor, we've had recent productive conversations with the auditors team, but we're moving forward on the prescribed timeline, and are moving forward on every single recommendation. Some we've already completed, others we've completed, but there is a requirement to review a piece of planning or documents every year, and so we need to move through that 1-year iteration before it can actually be complete. And then, as Jenny Johnson pointed out in last month's presentation, we received California State Senate support this year. And we were never on the table in terms of a budget item, which was really great progress and notable improvement. Last year, this past budget cycle versus previous budget cycles. So when we look at the milestone report, there's a couple of things that our founding legislation said that we needed to report on. Student enrollment, what our programs are, report on student outcomes, and then any qualitative description of new teaching and student support practices and feedback, that are guided really by student surveys, as well as direct engagement and identification of what's working well, what's not working well, and what can be improved. So with that, the next couple of slides, we'll talk about these bullet points a little bit more. So enrollment. As I said, we're up 123% from 400. It's easy for me to track because I started at the start of last fiscal year. So this is just, there's the period before me. But 481 students was when I started in early July, and we're at 1,076 at the end of our fiscal year. Our student body is very diverse. And you can see the numbers here. There are things that aren't on this slide. Roughly a third of our students are displaced workers, meaning that they had a recent reduction in the amount of hours they've been working, or they recently lost their job. But 31% identify as Latinx, 24% is Black, 12% is Asian. And I would say these numbers are a start. They're indicative that we're on the right track, but they're by no means, we're not happy, we're not settling with this. We have outreach plans in place. My outreach coordinator on my team was actually visiting. He was at the Soboba tribe services fair last week in Riverside, California, meeting with people. And he was at a services fair sponsored by Univision on Saturday in Southeast LA. So we're doing on the ground outreach that is paired with our workforce development engagement led by Michael Younger. And then we're also complementing that with what our digital marketing looks like and our digital outreach looks like. So all of these pieces of Calbright are really meshing and working in cohesion. And that was, I would say, truly something that came together in this past fiscal year, as the current leadership team really was able to gel. So here's just visual representation. And I've added in August. This 1,090 is as of about 20 minutes ago. So we are one of the few community colleges that can actually track enrollments in very real time. And so I pay close attention to that. And as you see, looking at this trajectory here, you start to see the effects in the fall of what the proactive outreach looked like, or the effects of our proactive outreach, the effects of our information sessions. And then we hit 1,000 in the spring, and we kind of held there. That was intentional to help evaluate what are the needs of our student body, and now that it's much larger than it was several months ago. And we wanted to be certain that we were hiring the right people, we were implementing the right policies and systems. And now we're going to see some more growth over the next couple of months, and really getting into we frankly hope to double, move to 2,000 sometime in early 2023 on our path to 5,000 in the strategic vision by the end of calendar year 2023. And so along with that is 10 programs up and running. And then looking at our geographic representation, it's comes as no surprise, but LA County is our top county. It's the largest county in California from a population perspective. But we, looking at what our outreach is going to look like, we really want to focus on the Central Valley and Inland Empire. I would love to see all 58 counties represented in this map on our right. But we are going to be focusing our outreach and our marketing communications on the Inland Empire, Central Valley, these populations that are still they have not recovered yet from the pandemic, and it's ongoing and it's continual, and they have lower higher education completion rates than the rest of the state. I think the Inland Empire is one of the lowest college going regions in the state. So in terms of our programs, we have several that are open and running: IT support, medical coding, cybersecurity, CRM, and equitable health impacts, DEI. Our IT support and our Salesforce administration, our customer relationship management administration programs. Those are our two largest. IT support has around 660 students in it, and Salesforce CRM has a little over 300. And as a reminder, CRM has been around for a year now and open to the public. So really good growth from a pilot of about 30 students to where we are today at 300. And then as Carmen mentioned, we launched our data analysis pilot. Today, our first onboarding session is this evening at 4 o'clock, or this afternoon. So that is coming, and very excited. I would say that the enrollment numbers I showed on the last slide are not inclusive of the data analysis pilot program. So it's a little bit higher. We expect it to go over the next couple of days. But there was overwhelming interest in that, and so really excited to see where that goes. So now we're looking at outcomes. We have seen pretty solid growth in terms of certificates conferred. We've awarded 116 as of the end of this past fiscal year. 65 of those were in this past fiscal year. So really some good growth, and the majority of those 65 that we awarded in the past fiscal year were in the second half. So we're seeing kind of the acceleration and completion that's associated with these new student support policies and systems, as well as our more proactive outreach. We're seeing the effects of these. And I would say, looking at just right now, we've already awarded, I think, 14 certificates in July and half of August at this point. So we're seeing that momentum carry through and expect it to continue to accelerate. So we've also, Michael Younger's team has been leading employer engagement and working directly with employers to talk about skills. He developed a advisory council for our data analysis program that really brings in some phenomenal leaders in the field to inform our plans and curriculum design. Well, we shouldn't say curriculum design, I should say kind of programmatic approach. We also were added to Launch Board, which is the community college kind of employment database. That's a lagging indicator. Employment is really the final item that you'll see after you track completion and everything, because it's done by tax year, and it requires students to be out of the system for a couple of years before it starts picking up the data. So, but in the interim, what we're doing is we're doing student surveys, we're doing alumni surveys to try and generate as much information as we can about student success following their program, because it's not good enough to just have them graduate. We want them to be successful and to move into careers, move into jobs, positive labor market outcomes, however the student might define that. And it would be different for every student. One student who moves from shift work that they've learn their shift 1 week in advance to a standard predictable schedule, even if it's the same salaries, is a huge benefit if you're trying to juggle childcare. I have a toddler, and I can certainly talk about that. And then we've also done, we hired a new career services coordinator who recently joined us. So we're really excited to have her get up and running and expand the work that's already been done. And then I would say, just on the right column here is, oftentimes there's missing context about how difficult it is to create a new college from the ground up. And I just provide, Western Governors is not a perfect example and not a perfect replication, but it's something that we look at in terms of creating a new college. And they at the end of 3 years, I think, had four graduates, and they're notably larger now with 215,000 alums. So it really speaks to the importance of investing and building a good foundation so that we can scale looking forward. So now we get into teaching, learning, and student support. So as I mentioned, proactive outreach initiative has been really successful, but it speaks to a bigger kind of theme, which are our human-powered support systems. We want to be working directly with students, and we're an asynchronous college, but our programs are asynchronous. But that doesn't mean that they are devoid of human contact. It actually is quite the opposite. And so our wraparound services, career services, counseling, tutoring, as well as engagement with faculty, all of those things have been actively amplified and expanded this past fiscal year. As I mentioned, we streamlined our onboarding processes so that students can get to their curriculum faster, and there's more options to fit within their schedule. And then we're working on applying behavioral science with UC Irvine to identify what are we doing that's working well, what can be expanded upon. And so I imagine that in the future, we'll be coming with a more kind of robust discussion about our work with UC Irvine. So stay tuned, looking down the road. And then student survey results really give us a sense of what we're doing and what areas we need to improve. And so with that, here's just, we sent out a student survey in the spring, and these are some of the results, and a couple of things jump out here. 90% of our students would recommend Calbright to someone else. That's very high satisfaction rate. 79% reported they were satisfied with what they learned in their programs, and 76% were satisfied with their overall experience at Calbright. These are overwhelmingly positive numbers. And I would say they also come within the context that every student that comes to Calbright brings with them their own sets, their own goals and desires. Some might be looking to change jobs. Others might just be looking for more information, more skills to make them more competitive in their current job. So, it is a really varied student body. 69% shared they sought out their academic success counselor. That's really the overwhelming majority, which is good numbers. We have a student body that I think in a traditional brick and mortar campus would not attend things like office hours. And so what we want to do is proactively engage with them so they know about things like, these support mechanisms. And I would say of the 72 respondents who engaged with their academic success counselor, the overwhelming majority, 88%, said that the success counselor was integral to their academic journey. But it also shines a light on some of the responses indicate where we can focus on. 96% of students who engaged with the career services agreed that career services help support their professional journey. So it's very, very positive. But only 21% of respondents had engaged with career services. Now, this speaks to a couple of things. One, we have hired a new career services coordinator to help expand those services, but also students might not be thinking about career services until they get to the end of their program, right? That's the logical, okay, I'm moving through, but now I'm at the end. What do I do now? So we want to engage with them earlier in that process. And so that's going to be, a really important thing as we move forward and part of our proactive outreach. So with that, I want to shift gears a little bit. And so one of the components of this, and we're moving away now from kind of our fiscal year recap, talking about our mission. Every year we do an evaluation of our mission statement. And that is inclusive of faculty, staff at Calbright. As a new college, we're 3 years old at this point. So every year has been 1/3 of our lifespan. And so it's healthy and makes sense to reevaluate our mission and look at it. And so here's what our current board approved mission is. And I will say that we went through this mission a couple months ago with all of our faculty and staff. And we felt that it really resounded with who we are and what we are striving to do, and it still represents Calbright. So with that, I wanted to provide the opportunity to share this with the board, and we can, if the board desires, have a more robust conversation about it. Maybe not today. Maybe it should stand alone on it as its own item down the road here. But I wanted to at least breach the conversation here, so that we can think about that going forward. So with that, this is my last slide. And so I want to open it up to any questions you might have, or comments, or what have you.
So thank you, very, very much, Brendan, for that presentation. Let's open it up to my colleagues. Are there any questions regarding the presentation? I don't have everybody in front of me. Oh, there we go.
Jolena has a question.
Thank you, Jolena. And then I see Hildy and then Tom.
Thank you so much, Brendan, for this incredible presentation. It has so much great information that really is showing the difference that's being made. I was wondering though, with the number of students though that are listed, when we see that number as it gets ever so close to 1,100, I'm assuming those are unique enrollments, that each one represents a particular student and it's a non-duplicated head count. The question I have though is how many of them are part of that 400 plus from this time last year? How expeditious are they completing their pathway to certification? Because I believe each of our programs were designed as short-term career credentials. So do we happen to know what the average cycle time is from a student entering Calbright to finishing their credential and then landing that job that's directly related to the instruction they received?
Right. So that's a great question. And so, yes, the first point, those are unduplicated. But in terms of completion and persistence, I would say the numbers we have right now are preliminary because we're so new. Our time to our average completion rate, or not rate, but time for our IT support program is around 9.5 months, and it's the same for our cybersecurity program. CRM, it's a little bit shorter. It's in that 7-month range. But these are not programs that people are finishing in 4 weeks, for example. And they are certainly difficult college level courses. So I don't have the exact number of that 481 that were in the mayor. Where are they now? I would say that the majority of them are either still enrolled or have completed. But there are some who enrolled and did not move forward with their program and withdrew. That would not be the majority of them, but at this point. But yes, it's unduplicated and it's about 9.5 months for those two programs. Yeah.
So Tom, Hildy and Tom. Hildy.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was reading the agenda item details and noted how compelling it was. I think I could have stopped reading just at that introductory slide. You were talking about how the student body grew and about how 92% are 25 years old and older, more than double the system-wide rate. And then we have 34% who are parents and caregivers, triple the system-wide rate. But I'm looking specifically at a statistic that Trustee Shaw would frankly slap my hand if I didn't bring up. You have 24% of students who identify as Black, which given the last statistic I have is more than 4 times our system-wide rate. So could you elaborate on what you're doing there? Because I think that might be something we want to bring back when we wear our other hat as Board of Governors members. And then the second request that I have is I'd love to delve in further into how your academic success counselors are so successful. We often hear from the students and about their journeys and about how they're making their path through the system, but I'd love to hear more about how you guys are differentially teaching these counselors to bring that much more success to our students.
Thank you. Yeah. So first on the Black student enrollments, that number has really stayed fairly steady over the course of the fiscal year. And as I said, I look at enrollment and demographic numbers month to month. And that number, that 24%, has really stayed persistently strong. And I think if I had to speculate here, I don't have the exact secret sauce answer, but I would say our model, I think is indicative of it's a welcoming model for a particular type of student. 90% of our students say that our program, our model, was the reason that their program was accessible. So I think our model speaks to the needs of this population of our non-traditional learners, and really highlights, we need flexibility. That I mean, just to put it in true logistics, traffic is part of life in California, and if you have to lose an hour to get home to your kids in order to make the 7 p.m. every Tuesday night course, that you might just decide to not do it. And so I really think that our model, speaks to the non-traditional student. But I also say, when we look at our outreach, we're statewide, but what we're really going to do is focus on communities, counties, and discrete regions that have a higher need. And so I think you see that in some of our demographic numbers. And I would say I don't want to take Ted's, if you had any commentary to add about why our academic success counselors are so successful.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brendan, and thank you for the question, Trustee Aguinaldo. So I would say a little nurture in nature, right? The people we're bringing in are really highly skilled, who care about students first and foremost. But the other thing is, we also have a strong team that tries to support each other. That it's not all up to the academic success counselor, that the entire faculty with instructors, tutors, student support specialists throughout enrollment, student engagement, career services, they all try to work as a team whenever they can. And we're not perfect yet, but we're striving to figure out how we work together for the benefit of our students. And that is starting to resonate.
Thank you. Tom?
Thanks. First of all, I just want to say that was a great presentation, Brendan. And I want to add that every presentation we've had today by the staff has been really excellent. And I really want to acknowledge the great work you guys are doing, how well you communicate and really tell us what's going on. I read the Milestone Report and I thought it was really excellent. I mean, just it was exciting to me that all these dreams we had for these years seemed to be coming to fruition, and it was explained in such a detailed and effective way in the Milestone Report. I mean, it's like a greatest hits of best practices that colleges should be using, especially the personal support, surrounding our students with professional support, and just proving the whole concept of competency-based education. I mean, I hope we're able to sustain the amount of support that we give these students, because I think it's super important, and that's something I think we ought to be looking into. I have several specific questions. One was just, have we had any reaction from the legislature? Maybe Jenny is the right one to answer that.
Thank you for the question. We haven't. So by statute, I did forward a copy to the legislative Ledge Council, the Assembly and Senate. We are at the end of their legislative session, so I think part of it is timing, but we do have regular engagement. So we've sent it to the governor's office, Department of Finance, LAO, and what we'll do is reach out to them again after the legislative session. One comment from the governor's office is, I'd like a hard copy. I can't look at this until the fall, but I want to go through it with you. And I think that's the thread that we're going to have. So we already have some meetings scheduled, I think 4 Danny Mays on that. And we hope to do more strategic outreach so that if folks don't reach out to us, we reach out to them as well with this piece of information. So more to come on that. Happy to report back later in the fall.
Great, thanks. My next question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
My next question is about the medical coding program. I see it's been capped for a while. Is it our intent to uncap it, or is that it? Is this the end of the medical coding program?
So I think it's right now it's under exploration in terms of programmatic improvements, and its connection to the labor market. It's one that the material changes quite drastically annually. And so I don't have an explicit answer for you here, but it's something we can talk about going forward. But I know that it's under active review.
Okay. And I noticed the term metacognitive was in the report, and I'd love somebody to define metacognitive for me.
That's a great question.
Not you, Brendan, huh? I saw that too.
Can I add metacognitive?
Sure.
It's really helping your students learn how they think about learning. So it's a process of, as they're learning, like what are the skills and strategies that they're using to learn new material. So that's kind of the approach that we use in education, is a metacognitive approach.
Might want to find a word that other people will understand a little better. But
your point is well taken. That we can clarify and use jargon, but then clarify said jargon.
Yeah, more words in this case are better.
the other question: Are we using CCC Apply?
Yes.
Still?
Yes, and that
is that imposing barriers for us? Is it?
I wouldn't say that it's the most seamless experience, and there's a couple of things. I would say that the barrier is smaller today than it perhaps was at our initial launch. But it is, for example, when we redid our website, one of the things that we focused on was the mobile experience. The majority of our traffic was coming on mobile devices, iPads, iPhones, those kinds of things. And so our previous website wasn't really optimized for that. And what's really not optimized for the mobile experience is CCC Apply. And so it's tricky. What we want to do is really nurture the students as they move through our landing pages, the enrollment process that we can control, to let them know, okay, you are getting ready to leave the Calbright environment now and go to CCC Apply. Which isn't something that we control. And so we've been actively working with the Chancellor's Office on this, and we've been able to add a couple of supplemental questions to help us better understand our student demographics, things about employment numbers, those kinds of things. So I would say we're striving for constant improvement there, and working hard on our end to ensure kind of an optimized experience, so that they're stepping into something and then they're fully informed of it.
This isn't for you guys, but I hope there's light at the end of that tunnel, because that's a huge problem. I think if it's not accessible mobile, that's really bad for our student population.
It's also, I think it's 123 fields or something like that. So it's just,
it's too big.
It's daunting.
Yeah. So just finally, I think it's great, the partnerships you've developed with other colleges, and hope that you can continue to share what you're learning. I mean, a lot of colleges, I think, are starting to think about CBE now, and the more support we can get from them, obviously, the better for the future of Calbright. So thanks again to all of you for your great work.
Thanks, Tom. I see your hand raised, Jelena.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask a follow-up question that is related to what Member Alguernato mentioned, which was how different the enrollment statistics are for certain populations of our students at Calbright versus the other community colleges. Do we also have the demographics of our completers, and in comparison to the other community colleges, in order for us to get an idea as to who is being successful, and is it different for our students?
Right, that's a great question. So I don't have them in comparison to the rest of the system off the top of my head, but what I do have is kind of some early indications of what our completion demographics are. And so the numbers I'm going to give you are it's the percentage of completers who it's not the completion rate. So 16% of our completers identify as Black, 17% as Latino, 12% as Asian, 8% as white. And if you're doing the math in your head, you're like, where's the rest of it? And I will say that this is an area that we need to look into and we need to explore. And it's a part of CCC Apply. And that last conversation we had is that 44% of our completers did not provide. They chose to not answer the ethnicity question. That number is much higher than our student body decline to answer statistic, and that's something that we're going to need to look into. We'll look at how do we, if that is something that we can't change on the CCC apply side is how do we find that information through other routes? So I would say early indications are promising, but it's also needs more work as well.
Brendan, those are phenomenal numbers. Phenomenal numbers. Thank you for sharing them.
So I don't see any other hands raised, but so I want to and thank you, Jolena, for your question, because that was one of my questions too. It is in the completion rate that we can determine whether or not there's equitable completion, and obviously there is beyond what we can see sometimes on our own traditional college campuses. But Jenny, Tom kind of prompted this when he says the milestone is report is the greatest hits of best practices. And so it made me think about, I realized that the milestone report is only 35 pages, but it is stocked through and through with really, really good information. And it may be helpful, and having been legislative staff, I would put all the great reports to the side where I'd have time to go back through them. And I wasn't dealing with the day-to-day stuff. I think that this is too important. I think it would be helpful to give our legislative staff and members a taste of what is embedded within that in something that may be just 6 pages or 5 pages of the greatest hits of that report that will link them to, if you want more, it's in this section of the report, because I would hate folks to put that aside and us not really be able to tell our story in bite-sized ways.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because it kind of goes to our summer and fall strategy, a little bit of which I alluded to at last month's Board of Trustees meeting. We want to take it to actually 3 steps, President Haynes. We have a copy of the full report. We'd also like to break it up in chunks. We believe visual is important. And also, I think that a number of you have highlighted just the top of mind priority about competency-based education, trying to get more with the future.
You're breaking up a bit.
And as we're iterating, improving, what does that look like? I will turn off the video. Hopefully that will help. We'd like to also have vignettes, if you will, talking about competency-based education for those members who serve on the education committees and the budget committee.
Perfect.
Not just about more community colleges are going in this direction. So again, happy to share more as we have those updates.
The audio is cut off, but I think we got the gist of, you're going to work on this. Perfect. Okay, so is there any public comment on this one?
There is no public comment, President Haynes.
Okay, and there's no vote on this. This is a information item. Our next information item is a standing one. It's 5.2 reports on contracts and purchases. And we have Carmen Drummond, our Chief of Staff, that's going to walk through a few of the items on that list, if there's questions.
Great, thank you, President Haynes, Vice President Costa, and Board of Trustees. There were 9 contracts executed in July 2022, and a summary of purchases in July totaling $60,158.74. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? I don't see hands raised. Terry, do you see hands raised?
I do not, President Haynes.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I was going to ask for public comment.
I'm sorry, I was going to jump the gun. There is no public comment.
No, but thanks for helping me out. I sometimes forget about the public, and I don't mean to. All right, so there's no public comment, and again, this is an information item. So we're now down to the item, the constituency reports, and I think we have one report from our academic senate. And we have Michael Stewart. Is Michael with us?
I am, President Haynes.
Very good. Go ahead.
Hello, President Haynes and Vice President Costa and members of the board. My name is Michael Stewart and I'm the president of the Academic Senate here at Calbright. And it is with great pleasure that I stand before you, well, actually sit in my chair in front of the Brady Bunch Square in front of you. And ready to give praise to the achievements of the Calbright faculty. At Calbright, our faculty work hard to ensure student success and should be acknowledged for their efforts as much as we can. But today I would like to especially shine the spotlight on our instructional faculty. Our instructional faculty has been busy making course enhancements that you guys have heard about in earlier discussions to better serve our students. And these updates as follows. I'm just going to break down each course real quick and give you a little blurb. WF 500, which is a workforce development course. We're developing enhancements to that course to add more features to it for student engagement. IT 500, which is A+, which is one of the flagship courses at the college. We're now testing virtual labs with our CompTIA partner and making new course enhancements that we're going to roll out because our old course is now sunsetting. So we're up against a tight deadline, but we will get it done. And we've also rolled out student lab hours for students to come in and just do their homework with an instructor there and to hang out with other students and to ask about industry specific questions and what's going on and where do I see myself after I graduate and how can I get a job, things like that. And students have been showing up and asking some good questions. Our IT 510, which is Security Plus, is also going through a major course development, and we're implementing labs in that course also. IT 520 and 525, which is CRM, has deployed new enhanced versions of both courses, and they've rolled out optional material trail mix to the students, not the food, but it's actual buckets of chunks of information and different courses. So which can be constantly updated on a rolling basis with new material. And I just want to highlight our faculty member that's working on that, which is Elizabeth Biddlecom. We're very lucky to have her. She is a software developer and is actually writing this material herself and not going from a canned piece of equipment, but actually making it specific for her students in that course. So we're very lucky to have that expertise. Business 500 and 501, which is a course that hasn't been released yet, but is getting the most attention right now, which is our data analysis course. Our faculty is working on finalizing the onboarding and student support services that will be offered when this course is rolled out. And last but not least, our medical coding is testing also new course enhancements. So we're getting all of these enhancements ready for our DAC visit, which will also be a benefit to our students because, as you know, these courses were spun up when we first rolled the college out. And as you know, again, with any startup, the wave that comes behind you overtakes you. So after the white water comes back, we're able to now breathe again, grab our surfboard and wait for the next wave to ride in. And that's with these new course enhancements that we're doing right now. So the faculty has now started the Friday web chat series again, and we've gotten success with students showing up, asking a ton of questions. We're now going to start to roll out our speaker enhancements of that program also, to where we bring industry standard or industry professionals in to talk to our students about where they came from, how they got to where they are, and what, again, they could expect when they go out and get that entry-level job out in the field. So to sum it all up, students are continuing to complete the Information Technology A+ and Cyber Security Plus programs. And in order to prepare them for their examinations for the certs, we're offering exam preps Monday through Friday, and now also on Saturdays, which we're seeing a lot more student engagement on the weekends because some of our students either work Monday through Friday or they're dealing with their children or their lives during that time. So we're starting to roll out as many programs as we can to help our students with the coin phrase, meet them where they're at. And we see that that's with some nights and some weekends. So to close, Calbright's faculty, instruction and non-instruction faculty are working hard to ensure that our students get the best possible support and programs that they have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. We don't have a report from the Calbright Faculty Association nor the California School Employees Association, which means that we've completed our agenda, everyone. So I think I have a gavel. I think I can gavel this that we're now adjourned.
Oh, excuse me, President Haynes, we have
Yes.
to ask for a public
That's my
forum.
public forum. I'm sorry. So that's why I need you. Yes. Are there any, is there any public forum?
There is no public forum, President Haynes.
Very good. Then my adjourning still stands. We are now adjourned. I think this is a wonderful meeting and thanks so much for everyone's contribution. Bye.